let's just jump into it. You know what I'm saying?
I do say, let's just jump right into it.
All right. Welcome to The Dialogue, where movies are more than mindless entertainment. I'm Derek. This is Andrew. This be Andrew.
This be Andrew.
Today we're going to be hitting you up with a kind of special in-depth discussion on The Dialogue. We also want to make just a quick announcement in regards to this week's movie review, Finding Dory. We're not going to be doing a movie review this week because Andrew's going to be out of town. Sad face. But you know what? It's for good reason.
That's right.
And then he'll be back in town the next week for Independence Day, which we're going to be watching that, and then we'll do Finding Dory as well. So we're going to come out with 2 of those movie reviews back to back.
We're going to hit you up with 2.
Anyway, that brings us to this special in-depth discussion.
So we just watched Warcraft.
Right.
Not World of Warcraft, Warcraft. And reviewed it, and I mean, we're privy to the voices out there.
Oh yeah.
And the critics, as well as user reviews from a lot of different websites, Metacritic, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm going to say this. I feel like people nowadays, whether it be just because of how prominent a role movies play in today's culture, or just because of how, I guess, many movies are being made, and how many movies are out there.
There's a lot.
People tend to be a little bit more critical, and perhaps not even in the best ways. And so I kind of wanted to just talk about, is it a good thing to be critical when watching movies?
Right, just kind of like ask a big question that a lot of people are assuming.
Right, so I guess, like, how do you define being critical when watching a movie? Because I think a lot of people have in their mind, like, what being a critical viewer is, and they kind of just go to town with it. And then I think there is actually what should be.
A lot of this also has to do with not just that there being a lot of movies and the culture and that sort of thing, but the culture that we're in is we have the internet.
Right, everybody has a voice.
Everybody has their voice.
That's why we're here.
Puts it up. Right, exactly, that's why we're here. It's a beautiful thing. But it's making this really interesting. So with Warcraft and a lot of other films, the critics, like the major, we are defined ourselves as critics. We have the badge, we have the little, whatever else they have.
The little emblem on the blogs.
They're giving it way low reviews. Like we're talking the movie is worse than
like
trash
crap. Like this is.
Whereas user reviews, a lot of people's user reviews are giving it pretty high marks. 8, 9, 10s even, which I struggle giving any movie a 10.
Right.
I've done it though. But yeah, should people be critical or voice their opinion? Is that what you mean by critical?
Right. Yeah. So by critical, I mean,
what do you mean?
There's basically, in my mind, there's 2 types of being critical. There's critical, which is like what movie critics do. And I think what users try to do, and that is basically looking at little flaws or niches that they have in the movie and then basically going to town on those. So it doesn't even have to do with like the overall theme of the movie.
Right.
It just has to do with, there's this technical flaw. I feel like this is a plot hole. It may or may not be, but I just feel like it is. There's this thing that the actor did that wasn't very good.
That never happens.
There's this acting flaw. There's this.
Right.
And so like finding all these little tiny things to just nitpicks.
Right. And most of them are technical.
Right.
I think that's the main
technical
thing.
level.
I think that's the main thing. It's on a technical level.
And that's the thing is that a lot of people are kind of getting into movie reviewing or just anything in general and just commenting on it and then going to town on it like this. And that's what the critics are doing. So they're just mimicking what the critics are doing in the sense of a critic will look at the movie and be like, the acting wasn't that, like, or whatever. They'll get into it. And really, it's kind of losing a joy in watching films in general.
Right.
But, so, is that a good thing? And yes, I think that we do need to watch movies critically. I do think that that should be something that you're looking for. But should you be more critical? Should you be thinking about things in more of the technical aspect, or from more of the perspective of what the director and the people who actually wrote the story are trying to convey with the movie? So, for instance, when a director's making a movie, they're not looking for, they're not trying to give you like all this technical stuff to be like, wow, the technical aspects of this movie were flawless. It's more like, and I'm sure that's what they want.
That's a part of it.
That's what they would want.
Yeah.
They'd want you to think that what they did was flawless. But at the same time, they're going for a message. They're trying to convey a message. They're trying to give you a story. And so on that level, on the story level, that's where I think we should be critical. It's like, what is the message of this movie? How can we actually get critical with what they're trying to convey?
In my mind, I don't know why, I just thought of like a TV dinner or something, which also relates to, I guess, movies and stuff. But so in a TV dinner, you got your little tray of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I can just see somebody like kind of opening up the tray, and I've never done this before in my life. I actually have never done this before.
Okay.
But anyways, like, you open up the tray of like processed food or whatever, and it's hard to get the aluminum foil off, and some of the food is kind of like bleeding into, yeah, and it's just like the technical part of the meal is wanting in some ways. But if you like the whatever type of fish sticks are in there,
whatever
is that also something that should be going through your brain? Like, should you just be focused on how it's being presented? I think it's you should.
There are aspects of both that it should be in your mind.
So you shouldn't turn your brain off.
Right.
But at the same time, something a lot of people are missing, and I would agree with you here, is they're not necessarily eating the meal, or they're not riding the train, which we talked about in our review.
And that's actually what I wanted to get into.
Let's do that.
Is should you hop on the train, which is the entertainment of the movie, and ride it? Like, should you get on the message of the movie and ride that sucker?
Should you ride the ride?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Should you just receive the message? The movie is the train. You get on the train, or at least this is how I look at it. This is what I do when I go to see a movie.
It's an analogy.
Right. This is an analogy. It may break down at some point. That's fine. A breakdown. Get it? It's a train. Anyway.
Nice.
So when I go to watch a movie, I get on the train, and I'm like, I'm going to ride this thing to the end. Right. And that's my goal, is I'm just going to get on the train, I'm going to ride it, and it's going to be a good time. Now, every little technical aspect that kind of is like a flaw, I guess, that critics would point out, those are like bumps on the track of the train.
Right.
So the less of those there are, the smoother the train runs. Now, for me, little bumps, like little technical aspects, those are bumps, but I'm still riding the train, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm going to try and stay on the train as much as possible to get to the end destination, which is the overall message of the film.
Right.
So, as I'm going along,
I like this.
If there's a lot that's happening, the road is really bumpy, the track is really bumpy, then I'm going to end up falling off the train, and then I'm going to be out of the zone, you know?
Right.
But I'm trying to stay on that train, and I feel like what a lot of people do when they come to a movie is they are not even on the train in the first place.
And they're kind of trying not to get on the train.
Yeah, they're
in some ways.
They're like, I just don't like the fact that they're making this a movie, or I just don't like this aspect of the acting. I don't like that guy is cast as that role. I don't like the fact that this director is doing the movie. And it's like, why don't you just get on the train and ride it for what they're trying to do?
See where it takes you.
And then you can judge it. You know, like be like, well, that was a bumpy ride.
Right.
But I know what the overall message of the movie is.
Right.
And that's the thing, too, is that you don't hear a lot of people talking about what the actual message and themes of the movie are. You just hear them talking about all the technical problems that they have with the movie.
Yeah. So the part of what we're trying to do in the dialogue, and this is kind of why we say movies are more than mindless entertainment, is we kind of want to get that experience, want to ride the ride, and want to be impacted by whatever's coming, whether you want to call it a message or just the themes, the director's vision. Be impacted by that.
Right.
And think about it with brains that are turned on. Also noting at times the technical aspects that are coming and playing into that and making it what it is.
Right.
I love it. I love what you're saying.
I love it.
I love
Just laying it down there for the peeps.
So, as an example, let's use Warcraft as a case study.
Yeah. So, for instance, like with Warcraft, what I've heard a lot of people say is that, number one, the acting is a little bit cheesy. Like, characters seem a little bit thin. Like, or how you can say. They're like, as one person said, paper thin.
Paper thin characters.
Which I didn't really feel that way, but that's just me. And again, I was trying to ride the train, mind you. Another thing that people had a problem with is they were like, there's a lot of lore in this that I'm not understanding.
Right.
Which with any fantasy world, there's going to be multiple avenues that you're just not going to understand stuff. You brought up the fact in Lord of the Rings that there's the Ents,
right,
the tree people, and it's like, how are they alive?
Right, and J.R. Tolkien, he's like he's immaculate, and like
there's background on the Ents.
There's history, you
know what I mean?
There's a history there, but when you're watching the movie, or even just reading the books,
right, they don't explain it necessarily,
and that's not a problem,
right? Because you just accept it because it's a fantasy world,
right?
And that's the thing, like. Somebody mentioned this, and they didn't say it in a negative way at all, so I'm not trying to convey this in a negative way. Somebody commented on our video.
Right.
Kudos to you, sir. You commented on our video. He commented and was like, well, what's the Dark Portal? Right. And it's like, well, that's kind of a loaded question because what is the Dark Portal? Well, what do we know about it? Like, we don't know what makes it up or how it actually works or anything like that. We understand that there's this magic called the Fel, that they're using this Dark Portal, you know. But we don't really know a whole lot about it. And that's fine because there's something there. There's something else there. Maybe the creators know what it is and know more about it, but there's a sense of mystery, and that's fine for fantasy. But
well, for me, like, just not coming out, like, I had no idea what the Fel was. I just, are they making up that word? I mean, they are, but I got that it was like some sort of way of harnessing energy from the souls of people that was almost... Actually, it was probably almost very connected to the soul because when you were use the Fel, I guess, would be the correct terminology. Use the Fel to harvest energy from a person. It would actually take their soul away, or their essence of
life in general.
Their
like
life
even
essence.
like creation. I guess you could say of the world that they're around is like dying, like nature and stuff.
While on the one hand, that is a very powerful thing, just very powerful force. It also, it's taking life and in a way giving life, but it's taking life too.
That does, case in point, that does happen with the baby at the beginning. Right.
He takes the life force, I guess, out of the deer that's there and puts it into the child. So it gives life in that sense. But most of the time, this one guy is realizing that their leader is using it to take life.
Right.
So I got that, and I think that's what needs to be gotten.
Right.
From it. This is dangerous and needs to be either controlled or just destroyed because the benefits from it are not worth the whatever casualties.
The losses. Yeah. And that's a really interesting point. But yeah, so like the overall themes of the movie, it's like, what are we actually looking at here in terms of what are they trying to convey? I mean, there's tons of different messages and themes, like for instance, the giving of life, the taking of life, the fact that the king has to give his life, and things like that.
To save life.
Yeah. But I don't want to get too much into that because some of that is spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, then there's a lot of really good messages. That's why we gave it such a high rating versus what a lot of other people have been saying.
Right.
Is because I was able to ride that train to the end destination and I enjoyed it and it was a good time. Versus looking at all the tiny little minor things that are like, oh, well, you know, they didn't explain that as much as I'd like. Who cares? They gave you the main message. The message was a good one and it was actually one that was executed pretty well. And so like that's just kind of how I'm feeling about it, man. That's how I feel about movies in general. But
I agree. So let's keep doing this. Yeah. Let's keep watching movies. We'll try to ride the rides that we're given. We'll try to put our hands up in the air and ride.
I like to go down the hills.
That's right.
With my hands up.
So guys, what do you think? Join the conversation by subscribing to the dialogue and then commenting on this video, the video you're watching. Comment on it. Okay?
Yes. Let us know what you think about movies.
You can like, dislike. And as always, join us next time on The Dialogue.